Here in section 5.3, we're going to be talking about a much more challenging type of factoring. This is going to take you more time. Don't assume you're going to be able to get through the homework in 5.3 as quickly as you might have some other sections of the book. The situation we're dealing with is one in which there are leading coefficients in front of the x and x squared terms, and that really complicates things. Let me remind you about multiplying. If you are multiplying where there are coefficients in front of the x terms, that really messes with the numbers that you get in your product. First of all, yes, of course you get a 6x squared in the beginning, but the bigger problem is what happens here with the middle. The easy parts in the front and the end, not particularly challenging. 3x times 2x makes 6x squared, 5 times 7 makes 35. Those two parts of the multiplication are pretty easy to figure out. But the part in the middle is really tough. And this is something that hopefully back in your Algebra 1 class, you practiced and practiced and practiced until you could do this all in your head. And it takes a lot of practice because look at everything that's happening. You're doing 3 times 7 to produce 21, but at the same time you're also doing 5 times 2 to produce 10. And when you're collecting like terms, you're having to add the 21 and the 10 to make the 31. So you're multiplying and adding all at once. And if you didn't quite get as much practice as you needed back in Algebra 1, you should probably put some time in now and get that practice now. I'm going to even write a note about this. Practice until you can do this all in your head. Of course, we aren't multiplying things out. What we're learning right now is factoring. So what we have to do is we have to take that and do the whole thing backwards, and that's going to be tough. It's so tough that one of the real challenges here is people are just desperate for some kind of shortcut or technique that might help them avoid the work that they have to put in. And the bad news is you just have to put the work in. I'll do everything I can to make it a little simpler, but you're going to use up a lot of paper, you're going to write out a lot of things, and ultimately what you're going to be doing is guess and check. Here's the easiest way that we can simplify things down. Start with these numbers at the end. What you're going to do with those numbers is you're going to make a list of guesses. What I mean by that is, remember, the 8 and the 15, those come out of the first parts of the polynomials and the end parts of the polynomials, and they're the easy parts. So for example, with 8x squared, that had to come from the first part of the first one and the first part of the second one. So if you think of a way to break up 8x squared, like, I don't know, 8x times x, you don't have to worry about which parts of the polynomial produced that. No, they were the first parts. Same thing with the 15. If you think of a way to break up 15, like say 15 and 1, then that's where those numbers go. And then make sure you check. This is only a guess, and since it's only a guess, you have to check. Remember a second ago I said you need to practice until you can do this all in your head? Here's why. Because you're going to check by multiplying this out in your head. 8x times x is 8x squared. 8x times 1 is 8x. 15 times x is 15x. If you take 8 and 15, you make 23x in the middle, and 15 times 1 is 15. You'll notice the 8x squared was going to work. The 15 was going to work. The only part that had a potential to fail was the number in the middle. So one way you can be a little faster here is just check the number in the middle. Don't worry about checking the 8x squared in the beginning and the 15x at the end, or 15 at the end. Those should always work. You'll notice this guess here didn't work. An issue that you got to be careful about is maybe the same numbers will work if you try a different order. So 8x and x, 15 and 1, but switch the order of the 15 and 1, maybe this will work. But you'll notice when you check, this doesn't work either. In fact, it's a lot worse. 15 times 8 is like 120, and then 1 times x is 1 more. You get 121x in the middle for this one. That's not working any better than the one we did just a second ago. So then eventually you have to try different numbers. Maybe it's not 15 and 1. There's another way to make 15. Maybe it's 5 and 3. And if 5 and 3 doesn't work, remember, order matters. Maybe 3 and 5 will work. Unfortunately, neither one of these check either. So when you do the check for this one, you get 8 times 3 is 24, and 5 times 1 is 5, 24 and 5. You get 29x in the middle. That's no good. You try this one here, and this one doesn't work either. You get 8 times 40, and 3 times 3 is you get 43x in the middle. That's pretty far off. Remember, it needs to be 22x. So that's not working either. And then the other thing we need to consider is different ways to break up the 8. For example, could be 4x and x. And again, 15 and 1, or 1 and 15. And that's not the only... Oh, wait a sec, I almost forgot. Let me fix that. 4x and x makes 8x. 4x and 2x makes 8x. There we go. This is one of the reasons why I suggest you use pencil. If you make a mistake, and you're going to make mistakes. I just made a mistake. Everybody makes mistakes. If you're using pencil and you make a mistake, you can correct it. Neither one of those check. Then you start checking 3 and 5. And eventually, you find one that works. This one right here. I haven't written out the check for each one of these, but if you foil them out yourself, you'll see that they don't work, but this one does. So here's one that I would like you to try practicing on your own. Take a piece of paper, pause the video, work on it, as many guesses as it takes to work this one out, and then press play again and see if you got the same thing that I got. All right, so here's how I would work this one out. I would start with the 2x squared, which is really very convenient because there's only one way to break that up. 2x squared, that has to break up as 2x and x. And then we've got the 4. The most natural thing about the 4 would be to break it up 2 times 2, because 2 times 2 is 4. But be careful, it's a negative 4. So that means you can't do plus and plus. That won't make negative 4 at the end. That's guaranteed to fail. You're going to have one of them be positive and one of them be negative. And there's 2 different places you could put that minus sign. So it matters where you put it. One could work and the other could be wrong. Unfortunately, when you actually multiply these out, neither one of those give you 7x in the middle. So it's neither one of them. Well, we know the 2x squared has to be 2x and x, but maybe the 4, maybe it doesn't have to be 2 and 2. Maybe it could be 4 and 1. That's another product that could produce 4. And again, plus and minus matters. We need to make a negative 4, not a positive 4, so we got to have one of them be a minus sign instead of a positive sign. Do either of these check? No, neither one of those check. So what else is there? Well, 1 and 4. It's the same pair of numbers, but in the other order. That matters. And again, there's adding and subtracting. One of these has to be positive. One of these has to be negative. But which one is positive and which one is negative, you can try both ways. And then finally down here, my last guess ended up checking. This will seem like a lot of work at first. You're going to put a lot of time in guessing and checking. But as you get better and better at this, you will eliminate possibilities mentally before you even put them on paper because you'll realize you know it's not going to work. And you'll get better and better at guessing. So here I had to go through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different guesses before I got the right answer. I bet if you practice just a little bit, you'll be able to do it in maybe 4 guesses, maybe 2 guesses. And that's not really as time consuming as you might think at first. These problems don't have to be as scary as they appear at first if you put a bit of time in and practice and get a little bit better. Okay, I'll see you next in section 5.4.